This time on Captain Chaos's laboratory, we're going to try and repair a St. Nicholas Square ski slope. Yeah. This is how I got it. It's in pieces. You got the belts here, which are split. Here's the power supply. Here's a little thing with a screw and some pins. The house. This one's still somewhat attached. It's not totally attached, but it's still there. Won't need a Tupperware container anymore. And we have an LED right here. Or, excuse me, that's an incandescent light right there. And this isn't really attached to the base. It's not separated, but it's also not attached. So and it's Mr. Christmas. I didn't even notice that on the box. So, oh hey, look, there's some super glue hiding in here. Look at that. Alright, so now that we have the top separated from the bottom, there's a wire that still connects the other house, which goes to a light. I'm going to... So that loose light's the light for in here. That's where it was stuck. There's the glue. So, what do we got? Oh, that's cracked. What's cracked is this thing here that holds all the gears, the plate. Belt tensioner. This belt tensioner is not working. No tension. There we go. Now it'll work. We got the motor and drive right in here. So the drive spins this axle shaft right here, which turns all these gears and then turns these big old pulleys on the top, which this one is held together with tape. So this adapter says Ski Hill on it. It is a 6-volt DC 400 milliamp adapter. So I'm going to plug it in and I'm going to see if anything happens. I just want to see if the motor works. So the power port, which is no longer attached, is right here. Off the power port we have a couple direct wires, and we have one wire which goes to the motor that has a resistor on it. Well, it's working. The down is faster than the up. Probably because the gear ratio is different. This has 4 large gears and a small. This has a whole bunch of 4 small gears and 2 large. So the down is faster than the up. Down here looks to be pretty unhooked. So, get a basic idea what's going on here. We have a couple of bad belts. We're going to see if we can fix these. Probably use tape and glue. We have lower pulley out of whack. We have tensioners. This one's good, this one's weak, that aren't tensioning right. This pulley seems to be okay. We got a broken housing piece right here. Hopefully you can see. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to try and zoom in. I got to center this. So there's the broken housing piece. If I slide this over, you can see that's broke right there. Of course that holds this, which of course is spinning. and that holds that, which is spinning. So yeah. So this is going to take a little bit of work, but we're going to see if we can get this back to a functional piece. Alright, let's zoom back out. Wow, it's the first time I actually did it the correct way the first time. Look at that. This house. So that have to be glued back down. Oh, I didn't even notice the lights worked. Let's check that real fast. I think your gear just popped out of alignment. So this light's broke and that light is broke as well. So no, the lights don't work. They're probably just white lights, maybe warm white or soft white. I might be able to replace them with some LEDs since this is a DC house. We won't get any flicker. So it has two lights and a motor. Now we get to take it apart and see what we can do. I'm going to go ahead and first disconnect this light from inside the house over here. I'm going to pull it out of its glue so I can remove this top piece and have more movement. Let's see if I can get the glue to break free. No, that light is really glued in there. They don't want you taking that light out, I'll tell you that. So I'm going to snip the light out so I can set this away. Let's see what we can do about all the broken plastics. So, this is the hard glue they use to hold everything in. I'm just going to remove that so when it gets time to put it back in. So now it's just prep the unit and see what we need to do to make it function. I think we should be able to sand this and re-adhere it. This one may be a little bit more difficult. So a little bit longer screwdriver so I can stay straight on the screw head. one's broke from the plastic base. A lot of broken plastic pieces coming out. Looks like this is just one long piece of plastic. Got a hole right there. There's a lot of screws, but it's because you have to remove the entire center section. More glue, and there's more broken plastic underneath these wheels at the bottom. For these, I don't need the long screwdriver. The reason I'm taking it off the base is so I can take the sides off and fix. This one's broke off, it's still attached to the screw. I can glue it back down so that way we have a solid mount. Now let's take this bottom section, see if we can get this one pulley to go straight back into its place. So the plastic is broke off. There's no plastic left at all for this to rest in. So let's see what we can do. I'm wondering, since these spin freely, if I can find a piece of axle shaft or metal this diameter and just go all the way through both at the same time. So finish unscrewing it so it doesn't break the This plastic's brittle, so it doesn't break everything. So, I don't know if you can see it very well, but this has a plastic piece right here, and this one sheared off, which is probably some of that broken plastic I just swept off and threw away. But might be able to take this axle shaft, get one that's longer, and just bore a hole straight through the center. Use a set of bushings to compensate for this so it doesn't walk back and forth. Like these right here, these two nubs are bushings, but they're bushings that fit inside the plastic. I would need bushings that I can press against the plastic, grind this down with a Dremel tool so it's smooth and not jagged, and then have one axle go all the way through that both of these can freewheel on, and that would fix the bottom pulleys, or idler pulleys, since they're not really doing anything except keeping the belt on its alignment. So I'll look for something. I'll see if I have something around here. If not, I have to hit the hardware store. So set this off to the side. I have an idea for that. Let me take a look at this tensioner. I think this tensioner is just the springs are slightly out of alignment. Yeah, that's it. It just popped off its alignment. Alright, now we need to look at these back stacks. So you can see the up is slower because we have a much different gear ratio than the down. Looks like the wire broke off the motor. We got broken plastic stuck on top of the motor. Let's get that out of there. The nose on the drive is broke, and this one's cracked as well, which is the drive up here. So the drive from the motor shaft and the drive for the top belt, both gears are cracked. They're going to be really, really hard to replace, so I'll probably just fill them with some super glue, clean them off with some rubbing alcohol. Let's check this side. And this one's cracked too. The drive is cracked. It's kind of important that they're not cracked because they will slip on the shaft. And this is what I'm talking about. This is a straight through axle. It goes all the way across. Do it for the bottom as well. And since they spin independently of each other, as long as they slip on the axle shaft, it will not cause any issues. Now, we need to separate these packs. This is broke in a lot of little pieces right here. This, and this appear to be intact. So I think before I take it apart, I'm going to fill these brakes with super glue because this compression is holding it in alignment. This is no longer attached to anything. And we definitely need something to keep it together. If these break completely, you could use a threaded standoff or a circuit board, which was the right length, and then run screws through both sides. Worst case, that's what I'll end up doing. But I'm going to first cover this, and then I'll take this side off and see if we can look at it. Also notice this pulley is down. This pulley is level to the plastic, and this one's sloped in at an angle. Oops, probably helps if I unscrew the cap and not the whole bottle. Well, I got a nice blob on there. I'm going to use a disposable brush, and I'm going to brush the super glue into the cracks. There you go. So while that side starts to harden, I'm going to loosen up this side so I can see about fixing the crack in the top, and then I'll put some glue onto the noses of the gears. What is caught on at the moment is this bottom gear, which is a press-on gear. It's cracked. And I'm going to try and carefully pry it off. Alright, she's not going to come off easily. So, let's work on this top. Looks like this, the reason it's at an angle, has been rebuilt out of super glue. That's not where it goes. That's why this top pulley is at an angle. So, we need to probably do something similar to what I was talking about down here, but still have the two shafts separated. So I'll show you what that means. So there's where I just brushed on the super glue to help all those hairline cracks that have caused it to disconnect. Here's the broken standoff, and if you look at that one, if you notice, it's not the same height. So when this is in place, you can see the pulley's at an angle. So we need it, when this is closed, that the pulley is straight, because that's what drives the belt. If it's at an angle, it's going to wear the edge of the belt, and eventually the belt will break, because it's going to be rubbing on one side, and it's going to be pulling harder on one side than the other. So probably have to take this broken piece, cut it out, put a tube of some sort, plastic or metal, in here, notch this plastic, adhere it with a whole bunch of glue, and then That way these are parallel again. They're not parallel and kicked off at an angle. That will help reduce the stress on this bushing, and that's probably what caused this to crack. This angled stress is pushing on the part that the axle protrudes through right here, and that's too much stress for this plastic. It's getting old and brittle, and it cracked. So we need to level these pulleys, mainly this one. We need to repair this, but I think we're going to do both at the same time by cutting out a section and putting in a replacement part. And then hopefully, that's still tacky, and my brush is just starting to get brittle. Hopefully that'll take care of that. And then I got to figure out an axle for down here, and then I'm assuming these metal pins in here, there's metal pins in this thing, are, yeah, they're the poles for the skiers. So now once that's done, we need to run this belt and reattach. And reattach, we'll probably use some fine glue, not super glue, because super glue doesn't flex. I'll have to find a flexible glue. That's where, or adhesive, probably a spray adhesive, because that flexes like for carpet. And then tape. Sounds cheesy, but unfortunately you need something that's flexible. So tape will follow the curve around both ends on both of these drive belts or ski belts. As far as the houses go, you can see where the light was glued, and this will just get hot glued back into place when it's put back together. And I'm sure I can probably get an LED to replace these broken incandescents. So I'm going to pause it here for a moment while I go and hunt through my stuff to see if I can find something for here and an axle for down there. If I don't, I'll be making a trip to the hardware store to see what I have. What do I have laying here? Here's an axle shaft, but I think it's too big. Yeah, it's too large in diameter. But it would be plenty long enough and I could just cut off the excess. So, but this is what I'm going to be looking for, something like this. This is an axle shaft out of a printer. I keep everything. So, alright, shall return in a few. Alright, that was actually pretty quick. I found my bucket of miscellaneous axles, or gear holders, and after going through about 10 of them, here's one that's plenty long. You can see it's longer, and it's the right size. The end's tapered, which is fine. It's going to get cut off anyway. So is this end. Both ends are tapered. But there we go. So now I can reproduce the bottom, which is out of camera now. So let's pull back. I can reproduce the bottom with a new axle. And I can make, I can get a bushing, like these are a little oversized, but a bushing to replace the side that's broke. Yeah, there's some bushings in here, but they're all going to be too big, which is fine. I got others. So, but yeah, so this might be a salvageable piece. So, all right, so back to the drawing board for parts. Here's a small bushing, but I think it's too small. Yeah, it's too small. So, but anyhow, so shall return again once I figure out what to do with this piece up here. So that piece I figured out. Bushing isn't that big of a deal. I have tons and tons and tons of bushings. Stacks of washers can become a bushing. I have plastic gear bushings that might fit. I can stack them together and it will be good. So, but I think we'll be able to salvage the bottom. Now we just got to salvage the top. All right, to save on the ears, I'm going to pause the video when I do it, but I'm going to use a tapered sanding disc on a Dremel, and I'm going to grind this down, this broken plastic to start, and then once that's done, we'll remove this side so I can get this out, so I can get an axle all the way through, and then measure for the spacer I'm going to need here. Probably going to use something like this. This is a guide for a belt, not this size, but you can see it's a similar shape, and I'll probably use these for the spacers here and here, because I have several of them, and that way it's plastic on plastic. So, but to save on the ears, especially if you wear headphones, the Dremel tool will be extremely loud. So I'm just going to grind off this broken plastic and then pull this out, and then put a hole, because there's no hole here between the two. And then we're going to mock it up and make sure that it's straight and works. And then I'll show you how to resolve the issue of it sliding off, or the axle coming out. Because if you notice on this one, the axle's in, and that's because it's glued right there. And that one will be the same. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to glue one side only, so the axle cannot walk back and forth. You can also pin the axle, and that's where you put a kink in the axle, drill a hole in it, and put a cotter pin so the axle can't walk out. But we'll probably just use glue. It's easier. We'll see how it works though. First, let's get this thing cleaned up with a tapered sanding drum. Okay, I went ahead and ground it down. Use a tapered drill bit, means it's thinner at one end and fatter at the other, to drill the hole through, using this side as the alignment for the axle. This side comes right off because it doesn't have this metal bar that's glued on. And this side is just, it's pressed, it's got knurling, and because this does not have knurling, we're gonna, like I said, just glue it on. Still pressed in. That, and then screws are not magnetic, so it's taking just a second. So, there we go. Now, we'll do the same thing on this side, except this side is stuck, because it looks like it's glued. I don't know if that's glue or just broke down plastic. No, it's knurled. It's just broke down plastic. It looked like it was glued. So on this side, we need to mock up the spacer. So I'm going to put the bushing, if I can get it back in its hole, there. And then I'm going to slide the pulley on and put push this all the way through, line it up on its two standoffs, make sure they're seated, these are all the way in, so I can see about how far I need, because that is going to be slightly too big. But if it's not hollow on the inside, which it might be, I'll make a stack of smaller bushings, what I probably end up having to do. Or, in some cases, you can even use a gear. The gear is just a bushing. It's not being used for its teeth. Here's the other side. So let's see how far this goes. Like that. Get these two seat, and that only gives me about half the distance I need. So if I can find another one of these top hat style spacer bushings, I can just stick two of them together and make up for that piece that's broke off, and then that'll take care of that. And then once that's done, I can mark the shaft and cut it. With the Dremel tool, you just use a cutting wheel. I don't think I have one set up yet, but oh, I did. So just one of these to cut off the excess, and wear eye protection because it throws sparks, and also the compressed stone or sand they use for cutting will also fly into your face. So now I need to find another bushing that we can slide in here, get the spacing right, and reattach this bottom piece, stake or glue the axle in place. I could glue the axle right inside of the outer casing. That way it doesn't walk, but I know I'm going to have to shorten the axle because it is way too long. It's probably about an inch too long. So that way it doesn't interfere with anything in here. But I'll test fit it to make sure, because if it doesn't have to be shortened, I won't. It's a waste of time. But this gives you an idea on how to rebuild something that's broke. It's a time-consuming process, so don't rush it, because if you do, you're just going to end up breaking the plastic more, especially because of how brittle this is. So we're going to work on the bottom first, like I'm showing you, and then once this is good and we have it set, then I'll work my way up to the top. So I'm going to go try and find some bushings so I can stack them in here and then go from there. Okay, I went through a little container of bushings I had, and I actually had a little metal top hat bushing. And I just refer to it as a flanged bushing, but I call them top hats. So the axle's in, they both row, and believe it or not, even with this extension sticking out, it doesn't interfere with the top. So instead of grinding it down and making it jagged and throw sparks everywhere and all that, I'm just going to glue it as it is. It doesn't interfere, so we're good. That's the important part, because the bottom of the ski lift or ski hill is wider than the top on the inside. So now we have two fully functional, parallel, level bases for the belts. So now we need to work on the top. And then we'll work on the electronic part, or the electrical part, last, because it's more important to get this functional than the electrics. Because the electrics don't matter if it doesn't actually do anything. So first, we're going to pull out these screws to separate the top, so I can pull this out of here. Let's see if my painted on glue does its job here. It did. Look at that. Woohoo! All right. So let's take the broken plastic out. I really want to unpress these bottom gears, except I'm really concerned they're not going to go back in without breaking, and they're not gears I have. So it's going to be slightly more difficult, and I'm going to have to try and hold these away like this while cleaning this up. So that's going to be a small issue. And I'm going to need something that maybe needs to be wider than this. Let's find out. This was screwed back together. Like that. No, that's about the right width. So, but the hole's too small. The axle is much fatter than the hole, but that's what they make a drill bit for. So, and then I have some grinding tools, and so let's see. What is going to be the easiest way to do this to where... Wait, did that gear just move? I'm wondering if I can slide it off of the barrel, or is the gear going to come off? Oh, look at that. I can get this one out of my way. I got the knurling to pull out of the drum. I wonder if I can do the same over here. Nope, this side pulled out of the gear. The gear doesn't appear to be broken. There is a small fracture on the nose. I'll put a drop of super glue on it. This is a keyed shaft, so shaped like the letter D. So now I have some working room in here, which is nice. Now I can clean up and remove all this broken stuff. So I want to remove it with hand tools first before I use the power tool, so any of this brittle plastic like this doesn't come flying off and hit me in the face. This super glued on one does not want to come off, which I guess that's good. It means that the super glue was good. Alright, so I'm going to put a cutting wheel on. Hopefully... Nope, not going to be able to get in there with the cutting wheel. Now without causing the bottom ones to unpress, and I'm still concerned about those gears. So... see if I have something bigger. possibly trim it. There we go. There's the super glue created circle. It's gone now. Now we just need to clean the jagged plastics. So where did I put my tapered? There we go. And here comes the noise. Alright, hopefully that wasn't too deafening for you, but what that did is I cleaned off the super glue and this side and the broken plastic on this side. So that will now allow me to, I know this is the wrong side, I just need to check the alignment. See about how far down I'm going to have to cut to stick in a new plastic bushing. Sharpie, and this is a cheater way to do it, is you cover the tip of your shaft with the Sharpie while it's still wet. You just stick it into its alignment and then you press, and it should make a dot on the plastic, in which you can then make a bigger dot right there. And then I'm going to do it again on this side. Get it nice and... making sure everything's just parallel. Once you cut this, you don't want to screw it up too much. So we're going to set this in here, and I need the center of this to be lined up with those holes. So I'm going to drill out this to the same axle diameter as that. So now that slides over on both sides, so we'll have it so it's now centered. Hopefully it'll be centered. That's the whole point. Now I need to make a cylindrical cut for this. So how I'm going to do this to try and keep it square is I'm going to put that in. Actually, I'm going to use this side. This side still has the bushing. And then I'm going to try and mark it with the Sharpie. There might be easier ways to do this, but this is the only way I can try and guarantee that there's no screw up. There we go. That way I know how much material I need to remove from the center piece. And to remove it, I'm going to use the cutting wheel to make cuts into it. And then I'm going to use a drum sander, maybe not this one, but a smaller one, to smooth it to where I can stick that bushing in there. And then put the axles in and see if the axles are square, adjust it as necessary, and then glue it in place. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to start just doing relief cuts down to my arc of Sharpie. And then I'm going to go in and clean them up. Alright, so I have a whole bunch of relief cuts, which you might see these like on woodworker videos, and then you can break out the fingers. Problem with plastic is it remelts back together, so not all the fingers are going to come out. So let's trim it up some more. Alright, so now I have a very, very rough arc cut into the plastic. Now we need to work on getting this rough arc cut down. So I still might use this because of the length, so I can get in there. So let's remove the cutting wheel. Turn the speed down a little. Think we might have it. So no, still a little too high. The pulley is now this way versus this way. So I need to grind a little more down. Totally fine. This is how we fit things. looks perfect. It's just a hair, I think. Let me put the other one on. Yeah, it's just a little high, and I mean just a little. They're tapered like this, not much. So just a little bit more sanding from that sanding drum, and we should be good enough to stick it in and then fill this cavity with glue, and then let it harden for a while. This is also removing the burrs from the side. Okay, that one. It actually looks good now. So I need to get the bushing I dropped so I can keep this centered. And we can get this glued in and then let it sit. So take it apart one more time. I dropped the gear, not the bushing, sorry. But this needs to get cleaned, and then this needs to have the glue put in. I'm probably going to end up using a much stronger glue than super glue. Probably use a resin glue if I can find where I put it, so it bonds harder. There it is. This original clear Gorilla Glue is a much stronger bond, but it takes a long time to set up. So when I mean a long time, I'm talking hours to a day, depending on how much you put on there. There we go, the gear and the bushing. So we're going to use some 99% isopropyl alcohol for the cleaning of the gear. Or the pulley, sorry. Not cleaning the gear. There we go. Blowing off some of the dust. I'm going to reassemble this and glue it while it's assembled so everything stays in alignment. So I'm going to put all the screws back. Dust. Got some of that plastic in my mouth. I'm going to put all the screws back in so that way it is tight like it's supposed to be, and the spacings are correct. So and then we're going to wait a few hours. So once this is in, you see how I glue it. I'm going to stop the video again and come back later when it is set up. So this is a more entailed repair process. This is probably something you may not try at home. You may try at home. The way I look at it, it's already broken. You can't make it much worse. It didn't work when I got it, and if you do this and it doesn't work, at least you tried. And you know that some things, even if they look really far gone, can be repaired. So hopefully this all works. The materials I use, I have lying around the house. Literally, it's just random junk, hence the channel name. But you can get axle shafts from hobby stores. You can get them from Amazon. You can get them from the hardware store. You can just get a long threaded screw that the threads don't go the whole way, and you have a clean shaft, and you can cut the head off and the threads off. Heck, in the past when I was younger, I used to use spokes off of bike rims because they're long and thin and they will replace axle shafts. I used to do it on my remote control cars. So you'd be surprised what you can find. That one's still loose. There we go. All right, look at that. So I'm going to press the gear on. Once I clean it off from hitting the floor. Make sure it stays in alignment. That. I need to hold this while I press it on. There we go. So we now have straight pulleys. I'm going to use this, like I said. Again, the clear Gorilla Glue is much stronger. And I will add it, and then we're going to let it sit. So, yes. Trying to roll the shaft at the same time. All right, I'll let that sit for a few, and then I'm going to pull these back out and then fill in the bottom since it's not spinning. I'm hoping I get it to spin real quick. Okay. Oh, there we go. All right, We're going to let it sit. Make sure that's in all the way. Like so. And we'll be back later. There. Back to center. Alright, return in just a few. Alright, it's been 5 hours. This is now cured. I went ahead and sprayed this belt with some adhesive, held it in place with some tape, used this to catch the overspray of the adhesive, this paper, and then did a proof of concept to see if it's going to work, since we rebuilt everything on this. And it doesn't do too horrible, but it does walk, where it walks off the edges, and that's kind of annoying. It does it every once in a while. Right now it's doing pretty decently. Right now it's only got one belt. So I don't even know if that's the right belt. I didn't look at the box to see which is the up belt and which is the down belt. I'm thinking this is the up belt because they're holding their skis. So I put the wrong belt on. Whoops. Should have noticed that when I was doing it. Yeah. There's no really easy way to change it, unfortunately. So that was my bad. So I just grabbed the first belt. I guess I need to watch to see what belt goes where. So I soldered the wire back on so I didn't have to keep holding it in place. But basically, we'll do it again, is overspray paper, feed the belt around. Now if you can't hold it because of the tension on the tensioner, you can actually just unscrew the tensioner. It's one screw. There we go. And hold the spring up and then just pull the tensioner off. So then you can feed your belt through. And get it on top and line up the overlap. And then get a piece of paper, or 2 or 3. Get your can, it's almost empty. And spray. And this one gets sprayed on the bottom. Yep. And my hand's going to be all sticky. Then we let it sit for a minute or two, because to make it a permanent bond, you got to let it sit. And what I did on the other side is I stuck it together and then I held it with some tape. Once the bond was good, I peeled the tape back off because the tape is not as flexible as I thought it would be. Probably because I used 2 layers of it. But, so. And then this is your guide. This is supposed to roll. And it's got the groove so that the buttons for the characters don't get hit by the pulley. So make sure they roll. If it doesn't roll, clean it out, add some lubrication. So, and then take your 2 belt halves and try and line them up as best as possible, because there is a mark. And instead of, and this is why I said I use tape, because if I try and hold it, they're going to start pulling apart. So if I put a piece of tape on there, and then just let it sit. Once it's cured in a couple of minutes, you can peel the tape off and then you're good to go. So, I am going to, on all these gears, I would normally put thicker grease on them. I am going to spray them with some dry film lubricant, just so I don't collect any garbage. Because a lot of stuff can fall inside here. So, now my hands are all sticky. I am going to do a little bit more filling in here with the hard glue. I'm going to put a little bit more in there. It's not moving, but I want to make sure that it's almost like a permanent structure. And then I'll probably end up using the same hard glue to glue the switches and stuff on. Because super glue works. It's a really great instant bond, but then it wears down over like a year or so. This stuff lasts a lot longer, I found. It does depend on how you store it, depends on climate, so on and so forth. So there are some factors. I think we've been long enough. Let's see. No, haven't been long enough. It's peeling the... Shouldn't move. Had the same problem with the other belt. Yeah, it starts sticking to the paper. So you got to do it before it gets permanent. Yeah, this side isn't working as good as the other side. Alright, so I'm going to let that sit a lot longer then. It's still tacky, it's not drying fast. But I want to move the paper up so this tackiness from the spray doesn't stick to the belt again. So we're going to give it a few minutes and then we'll be right back with it. So hopefully this side works. Just remember, after you get it to hold, to put the tensioner back in before you turn it on, because then it just doesn't turn. So I'll be back in a moment. I'm going to let this dry. I'm going to go wash my hands of the sticky stuff. Be back in a second. Okay, it's been like 10 minutes. I put the tensioner back on and there we go. So, yay. So, it is working. So, that's a thumbs up right there. It's a start. Way better than when I got it. So, that's some progress. I am going to put a dab of super glue on these top gears and the broken nose gear down here, just to stop them from spreading. Almost out of super glue. So I'm just going to dab it. Not a lot, I just want to make sure that it just fills in the crack. That's all I'm trying to do. Like that. So. Noisy belt, but this belt crinkles. So, all right, now let's get her back together. So, sure you don't assemble this backwards. The reason I know it goes this way is because that broken screw, which I'm also going to super glue. That. Alrighty. Let's get the tape out of the way. That out of the way. Set these down. This big green screwdriver is not magnetic, so I might go get a gouging tool to make it magnetic, since I seem to be using it more. There we go. Once this is screwed down and I get the glue started for the power and the switch, then I'm going to check the voltage of the wires coming out to make LED lights. Said the electrical part or the electronic part would be the last piece of this puzzle. So if you watch this and you're still watching this, hopefully it hasn't been too overly boring for you, and hopefully you can see that sometimes you can resurrect these from the dead, sometimes you can't. And then if you make mistakes, sometimes you have to deal with them, and other times you can fix them, like the belt issue at the moment. There's a buttload of screws to hold this thing together. Last one. And there we go. So, finally, we have it reattached to its base, ready for the next stage. So, I know that this wire here and here is what I cut for the other piece that's over there, for the house light. So, I'm going to pull the wire up and strip the ends off so I can check the power. Just need the wire to be on the other side of the loom here. The reason you need to check the power is this is a 6-volt power supply, and I have a funny feeling I'm getting 6 volts right here at this power, these two wires. So I'm going to have to get a resistor on both sets of lights if I change them to LEDs. So, plus I need to know if the dotted is hot or ground, negative. Usually it's hot, usually, but it's always worth checking. So, DC, power supply, and power. Yep, 8 volts, and the dotted is negative, it looks like. Go one more time. Yes, the dotted is negative. So, since we've now done this, I'm going to get the glue started on this because it takes hours to set. So let those do their thing, like that. So these are going to get hard and then hopefully not pop back out. We have just to do the lighting, and then once the lighting's done, we can put it back together again. Apparently one of the skiers lost another piece of metal, one of their poles, so I'm just going to stick it in here. Like that, so I don't lose it. So, I'm assuming the lights were white. I didn't see the color. So, we want to make sure we stick with a light that doesn't change colors or doesn't, like, what I got here is RGB, which means they rotate through colors. I got some red and green LEDs. Oh, what else do I got? Slow rotate RGB. I got LEDs everywhere. So, I have a whole case of them. Probably end up pulling that out. I'm just looking at what my loose ones are. We'll need this for reattaching the top. snapped open my case. So, let's let this harden for a little bit. I need to get my resistors out, and I need to get my LEDs out so we can change that and the one over there, and then set the whole thing together, hot glue it, screw the top to the bottom, and go from there. And it's pretty much done, although the belts are backwards. Other than that, unfortunately, now that they're glued together, I don't want to tear them apart, so my mistake. But anyhow, bear with me for a few. I'm going to get all the supplies needed for the next step, and let's get this thing put back together so I get it back to its owner. This will be the first time in a couple of years it's worked since it was in a bad state of disrepair. Alright, I got the top back on. There's only 2 screws that have bosses that hold this top on, so I'm going to hot glue. There's a screw here and a screw here. I'm going to hot glue like a Limax piece would have all around the edge, because there's no, well, these screws have nothing to screw into. They're broken and missing. So, but I soldered on some lights. Because if you watch my previous videos, you see how I do it, but I'll just explain it to you. They are white lights with 333 ohm resistors on each, and that is so they don't burn up. So there we go. Oh, there we go. So see the lights. And you gotta be careful because this wire is supposed to be glued, and if it's not, it gets caught on the freaking skiers. So I'm going to now glue it all together wherever I put my glue gun. I even mentioned that a minute ago. I'm gonna have to glue this thing and move my glue gun, and it's a never. Oh, there it is. So, fire that thing up, get it warmed. So, I'm going to zoom into the LED so you can see what kind of LED it is. Guys, this is probably not one I've never used before on a Limax house or anything. Focus. Focus. Gotta love cameras. Now, let me try a sheet of paper. Gonna focus. Kinda. Oh, come on. Yeah, that's as good as I can get. If you notice, the LED is square. It's got 4 pins. Square. Decided to go with a square one because there's more surface area for me to glue it with the hot glue gun inside the house than a regular LED. So that's the reason I chose the square on both ends. And then there's the resistor here, right at the LED. And then this one, the resistor is at the switch, since that's where I cut the wires. I'll move it back out. So, the other house, I just popped it out so I could make it easier. So you just got to be careful with these so they don't get caught in any of the moving parts. That's the annoying part. It's kind of a stupid design, but you know, it is what it is. I would have had like a hole in here that the wire fed through with the strain relief so it couldn't drop. But then if that happened, then you couldn't unscrew the bottom. I mean, there's pros and cons to everything. But I am going to glue. It looks like it might have been glued right here originally. But doing that puts a loop that these characters can catch. So I'm going to pull it a little bit more taut, and I'm going to glue it to the center. And then that way, if it ever has to come apart, you have to pop the cabin off and then break the little bit of glue. So there's the bottom. Here's the top. And glue gun's not hot enough yet. So, and I'm going to put a small dab of glue on the cabins, kind of like they had, just to help hold them in place. Once that glue's set, I'm going to turn it over, glue this front edge from about this tree to about this tree, since there's no standoffs to hold the screws. And then I'm going to let it run for a little bit, make sure it still works. I mean, it shouldn't have any issues. Shouldn't. Keyword. I did spray the gears down with some dry lube before I put it back together, just to reduce any friction. Like I said, I normally would cover it in lithium grease, but I don't want anything falling inside here and getting stuck in that lithium grease, because this is kind of a pain to... Still not hot. Man, this thing's taking forever today. Huh, the battery's almost dead. But the problem with lithium grease is it attracts debris, dirt, grime, and I don't want any of that in the mechanism. So the dry lubrication, less likely to. Still will, just not as likely. So you can basically get an idea what I'm going to do next. I'm just going to glue everything together, give it one final test run, and let it run for a little bit. I may not stick the poles back in. I might. Depends. It's hard to see the little holes in their hands. You gotta put a dab of glue on each one, I think, because they're just gonna fall out. Yeah, they're just gonna fall out if you don't. There we go. So pull it taut and a little bit of glue. And I'm gonna use this as a weight just to hold the wire from sliding back. That. So that way that can get hard before it gets put away. And then this one, put a little glue on the inside. And kind of push the LED. Ooh, that's hot. Go figure, hot glue. Push the LED in. Give it a second to cure. Get it off my screwdriver. I'm also going to glue a little bit of the wire to the wall. Do the same thing to this one. Put some glue right there at the studs that the LED was, or excuse me, the original light was in. And then set the LED in it, like that. And I'm going to glue it to the wall as well, just so the wire is slightly out of the way. So let that harden. And like that will do ya. Whole point is to keep the wire away from the moving stuff. The moving stuff will tear and get caught. Okay, looks good. A little bit there. there. The heck? Okay, they're smacking this wire, so I need to glue a little bit more on the back just to hold it. Go. Line up the holes. There we go. Now let's try it again. Apparently this skier, or pole, is grabbing the building. So I'm going to pop the pole out for a second. Alright, why have we stopped? Oh, I hate when things go together and they don't work. Something got caught somewhere. Crap. Well, means I gotta take it apart again. Glue this house on real fast, and then I'm going to flip it over and dismantle it. See what's wedging the wheels. I'm happy I didn't glue the bottom on yet. That would have been bad. So. Alright, so we're going to leave it here for the moment, and I'm going to let the glue harden and then flip it over, take the bottom off, and see what's jamming up my wheels. Be back in a moment. Alright, here we go. There it is in the dark. This was a colossal challenge. Bottom's glued on, everything's glued together. The reason it quit working is when I glued this on, the glue got onto the pulley and glued the pulley in place. So, be careful with your hot glue. Don't over glue. So, there it is. The Mr. Christmas ski hill pain in the butt. But it's all back together. I'm not going to put these metal spikes in. I'm just going to send them back like this and let her know. And that's because they keep getting caught. Because the belt's not perfectly centered to the pulleys, to the doors, or it's all warped. But it keeps grabbing this one. Not this one. This one. So I keep grabbing the edges of this little house on this side. So anyhow, it's back together. It's set. It's working. It's got new lights, as you saw. Nice white lights. You can see the skiers. It does surge every once in a while, which I think is kind of weird, but It's all lubricated. The front's glued. These are glued. She's good to go. That pretty much concludes this one. Any questions, comments below? This thing's taken like 6 hours, 7 hours if you count the time for the glue to harden. So, but there she be. From a broken non-functional piece to it works. So hopefully this helped you. If yours is all busted up and the plastic's all busted up, some ideas on how to fix it. So I hope it helps somebody. This one has actually made me so exhausted I'm going to not work on another one until tomorrow. So you should see this video here soon, before Christmas. And thanks for watching the Mr. Christmas ski hill and a full rebuild from basically a box of parts. Have a good one.